All right, thank you for coming back to part two. We're going to discuss and continue discussing the return of Christ. This is going to be an outline of my beliefs, my philosophy as somebody who has put in a lot of work towards understanding esoteric wisdom, esoteric spirituality, mysticism, and reading through a lot of scripture. Again, I've got a BA in religious studies, I've got a PhD in psychology. None of that really matters. It's just, I know a lot of people today online, they watch a couple of videos, they've spent maybe the last couple of years since COVID, awakening, everybody's calling it the awakening, whatever you want to call it. Sure, yeah, I think everybody's entitled to their opinions. I love all of you guys. I'm not trying to project any negativity, but people really don't know or understand this stuff. I want to further emphasize my opinions. If you don't like my opinions, just click off the video. I'm not going to engage with negative comments. So, what Christ really represents is a threshold of interconnectivity between all things. Okay, he's at really the center point of all things. When you look at a lot of his imagery and a lot of artwork, you'll see him pointing towards his heart and pointing upwards, as above, so below symbolism. Essentially, the two hands are the trifecta of the Trinity. He, of course, being the Son aspect of that. Pointing towards the heart, which would be the mother, pointing up towards the Father. So the mother, by the way, is the Holy Spirit. A lot of this is more of I guess you could call it a Gnostic, Hermetic, Essenian Christianity standpoint and viewpoint, but in my personal opinion, it's far greater than anything that the church is going to sell you. It's far greater than anything of how most people are interpreting the Bible today. Again, I've got a nice selection of biblical verses that you can go and experiment with and you can read through yourself. So let's get into this. So when it comes to the from the reference of the human being, from the reference of the human spirit, the sun and the moon are essentially like our father and our mother. And when they come together, they form a baby, they form a child, that is you. Okay, so just like how your mom and your dad made you, so too does the symbolic representation of what those planetary objects combining together in a beautiful, operative harmony. So too do they also create you and help you evolve and become who you are. If you go and you study the Tao people of like China area, many centuries ago, they had lots of ideas around this, one of which was called the Neidan, all about the immortal embryo, the immortal child, which is like your inner child. And as you build that up and you cultivate that, you'll actually become the best version of yourself. Because essentially, everything starts in the womb, If you remember and you recall being a child, time was way slower. So imagine if you could remember the perspective of when you were within your mother's womb, how long that probably felt as a child. Like even the inception of your being, right? Like the sperm hitting the egg, creating the zygote and everything. That probably, from the perspective of whatever amount of consciousness that being had, would probably be like an infinity to be able to go through the whole gestational period, all 3 trimesters. For us, it's like nothing. And this is where I really think a lot of the key symbolism in the Bible, where it talks about back in those days there were giants and the Nephilim and the angels came down. I think a lot of people take that literally. And when I read through the Bible and I read through those passages and I'm reading through the older books in the Old Testament like Genesis and whatnot, I go through it and I'm just like, yeah, I understand where people are coming from, where they would want to take that literally, and then, the leaked emails from the government officials and how they're talking about certain things like this. And everybody thinks there's like tons of evidence for this, but from my perspective, from what I've seen, I haven't really seen a lot of that. So really, at the end of the day, the point I'm getting at here is, psychologically speaking, whether you want to talk about like the embryo, the fetus in the womb, and there's like a tether, right? We have the umbilical cord, which is tethered to the placenta, which is attached to the mother. It's again like serpent in the tree and the Garden of Eden and the waters above flowing down to the waters below. There's so much symbolism here, and a lot of this is from the perspective of like, as a baby, you would look up towards your parents and see them as giants. Back in those days, there were giants walking around the earth. Right? I think that a lot of this is psychological symbolism that gets projected throughout all of religion, all of spirituality, all of mysticism, no matter how deep you go, whether you study Freemasonic symbolism or Rosicrucianism or anything that is, deeper, right? And I think this is where a lot of people go dark with it too, like Crowley and all these, even Helena Blavatsky, who I do really appreciate and respect. I think that theosophy itself has created just as many problems as it has helped awaken a lot of people, right? Like if you don't know the Theosophical Society, the Theosophical Society, I think I said that right. They, they propped up like mid to late 1800s, and they were already a shoe off of like Order of the Golden Dawn and like other branches of secret societies and whatnot. They wanted to bring a lot of this stuff into illumination for people, which is great. But now what we've done is we've gone into the woo-woo, the hyper-mystical. It's too mystical. It's too magical, right? Like, it's not practical. It's cool that, people set their moon water out and people do the herbology. But if you're losing your mind because you're thinking, like, aliens are coming next month with 3-Eye Atlas and all this other stuff, like, I think that we're going beyond the stretch of the truth. I mean, imagine if this is all just psychological symbolism from the perspective of self-betterment as human beings, but the world governments are trying to propose that there's actual real aliens that are going to come down in spaceships. Now, think about how great AI is. Think about how good technology is. Think about how easy this would be for world government systems to be able to lie and fabricate something like this if people took the Bible literally and they believed something like, oh, the Nephilim came down, blah, blah, blah. So that's just one example. Now, why am I bringing that up if I'm talking about the return of Christ? Because I think that with people taking the literal interpretation that the guy that they see in the European artwork, some white dude, coming down from the sky on a cloud, I think that the governments are just going to find an easy way to be able to manipulate that truth as well. So I really want to kind of propose this system as a way to reconcile a lot of the strangeness, I guess you could say, of what's been going on in the last, I don't know, I would say 10 years, but it's way, way beyond that. I mean, this goes back to like the 50s, right? So let's get into it just a little bit here. The alchemical marriage is a symbolic representation. I'm going to take more time on this video today. The alchemical marriage is more of a symbolic representation of when you can attune the sun and the moon together. This is extremely potent and important because if you're not understanding the symbolism here, I mean, it's not just like an eclipse. It's not just when it's a full or a new moon. Every person has their own energetic signature. You have a bioelectrical field. There's tons of science on this, toroidal field, whatever you want to call it. Our bodies require this energetic motion in order to substantiate life. And it's really within that flow of the waters above flowing to the waters below, which is what Christ represents. That's what Christ embodies. That's why through him you can get back to the Father. Okay, but first you have to go through the Mother. And, there's a lot of Zaharian, Talmudic, and Torarian literature, like from the Hebrews, that talk about the Mother. It talks about, for your transgressions the Mother was put away. And there's all these symbolic references about how our mother, which would be like from the Gnostic perspective, the divine Sophia, it's how our mother has shrouded herself, right? Like she hid herself. And this is, of course, that Gnostic tale. If you don't know, just as a brief synopsis, basically the monad, God, the creator of all things, the brain, okay, then, created a channel in which case he was both within and outside of space and time, which would be the body, and then the heart, which was the mother, Sophia, then creates the lower body, which is really just an attempt to reflect the upper mind. If you look at the intestinal tract and then you look at the brain, they look very similar. It's almost like a maze, but both of them are different. One of them's, larger, obviously, than the other. It's not just that, but it's also, it just doesn't function the same way. It's an incomplete system. So there's a diaphragm. Diaphragm would, loosely be translated as God's barrier. It's the protective barrier to shroud and shield the lower half of the body from the upper. Now, why does our body have a diaphragm, right? This would be your firmament, by the way. The diaphragm within the body would be the firmament that we have on the earth, the Van Allen belts, right? I'm not talking about a flat earth glass dome. We're not talking about that. We're talking about an electromagnetic barrier that exists. If it was a glass dome, you'd never be able to have like meteors or anything go through it, right? But when those comets and meteors do fall from the sky miraculously, similar to probably how God's eating food, I would imagine, right? And it comes down into the stomach and it crash lands into our world. Well, then essentially that would be very synonymous with, you know, how the energy operates, where there's this barrier and the comet comes in and it explodes. It's a protective barrier. It's there for a reason. It's there on purpose, right? So my whole point with this is, you see the tale of Gnosticism, which is very much so, in my personal humble opinion, Jesus was part of the order of Melchizedek. You can read that word for word in the Bible. They talk about how he is the new leader of the order of Melchizedek. Who is Melchizedek? Melchizedek was the ultimate archangel, even higher superseding than Michael. So essentially what I'm getting at here is, like, Jesus would have probably thought this way. He probably would have at least dabbled with understanding this a little bit. So what we basically have here is, like, you know, the divine monad creates Sophia. The Sophia creates the lower world. It's a trinity, but it's also a hierarchy. So yes, like, here's Matt. I'm one thing, but I have three minds. I have my brain, my heart, and my gut genital microbiome, which is really where, like, the root of the ego and everything is stored, is all down here. Now, in the heart space, this is the center path. This is why Jesus never points to his brain. He's never doing this. He's always doing this. And the reason is because you have to, like, we exist here, we live here. That's why the solar plexus, the celiac ganglion, which interconnects into all things, it's like the central part of the brain. Remember, Kabbalistically, they would always cut the Kabbalah from the head. So essentially this creates, you know, your own Kabbalah here. I'm not even going to bother drawing the Kabbalah. And then this creates your own Kabbalah here. However, they would call this the tree of life, or, you know, the upwards Kabbalah, right? And then this one would be the tree of death. Because the body, according to the Jewish mystics, the body, nothing below the neck serves you, so to speak. It's all about pain and suffering and agitation. Everything above the brain is for you. And it's how you utilize your conscious mind. Kind of looks like an eyeball. It's how you utilize your conscious mind in order to get your body activated and moving, right? Like, I didn't when I wanted to make this video today, I got up and went to go make the video, right? Like, it's deeply psychological. So you have to use your mind properly, and of course your mind can dissuade you. But as everything centers and spirals into that golden ratio, everything spirals right towards the dead center, which would be that celiac ganglion. Very similar to, if you were to segregate the head, it spirals inward towards that center point of the inner thalamus. And these two are reflections of each other. Again, it's like the monad creates Sophia, Sophia creates the rest of the world, and it's like she's attempting to mimic and copy the monad. She's like, I can create too. But what she, you know, and then they'll say something, you know, if the Gnostic interpretation, which is like so dramatic, it's like, oh, she was, it was a monster and she was afraid of her abomination, so she cast it away. It's like, no, not really. What it is like, can you imagine if a mother has a child and then the child is looking at the father? Like, let's imagine it's a boy, because of course, like the Gnostic demiurge Yaldabaoth, the Shaitan, you know, however you want to kind of put it. They're not really the same, but a lot of people conflate them. Let's imagine you have a baby boy, right? And this is all psychology, guys. You have a baby boy. It sees the mother having a relationship with the father. It screws with his ability to say, well, I want to be the protector of my mommy. I want to be able to save my mommy. So it's almost like shielding the child away, because the mother and the father are constantly engaged in an ever fluxing love situation to keep the child alive. Do you understand? When your heart beats, it sends a signal back up to the brain. Your brain also beats and then sends the signal back up down to the heart. And of course the man's on top, the woman's on the bottom, so to speak, in the general symbology here, right? Because they're having sex. It's a sexual union. So again, the giants came up from the heavens and came down into the world and saw the women and had sex with them. Or like how a lot of the Jewish mystics are like Adam, you know, before Eve or Lilith were created, he was having sex with all the animals. It's like, no. This isn't a physical representation. This is a psychological drama to propose that these things are connecting into each other in perpetuity. So just like your heart, I mean, imagine, I'm 31 years old. Imagine how many times my heart has beat and how many times in response my brain would have had to also flux in response to that. A lot. It's probably millions of times. Okay, so this is a harmonious opera. Again, I use that word because I think it's a beautiful way to describe it. It wasn't that the mother was so fearful of her abomination. Again, this is a psychological projection of the people of the times. This is why you have so many things like human sacrifice and all this stuff. Like, people hate themselves. Like, everybody seems to have this struggle with hating themselves at least one point in their life or another. So especially when you're spiritual and you're focused on your nervous system can lead you astray if you're not centered properly. So this is just projection of the people of the times. But in reality, all of these things work in tandem together. So how does this have anything to do with Christ? Okay, let me explain. Jesus as the biological counterpart, when we're looking at the sacred secretion, Jesus would be like the exosomal lipid cerebrospinal fluid concoction. All right, what does that mean? You have so many very hidden, very secretive networks that run all throughout your body. One of them, for example, would be the deep front line, which you can look up yourself. But there's all these interconnecting, interweaving mechanisms within the human body that have these secretions, have this symbiosis. It can't just be the brain doing all the work. It can't just be the heart doing all the work. There's something deeper at play. There's an energetic balance, a signature to life. And that is exactly what Jesus represents and embodies at the end of the day. It's not just an oil. Okay, it's not. I want to get everybody off of this Freemasonic, old, archaic way of thinking about this sacred secretion concept. It's not about an oil gets secreted from the brain and then it goes into the thing and it does the thing and it dies and it comes in blah, 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 blah. You have this story cross-culturally. Dionysus gets brought up into the sky by his father Zeus and gets torn apart by 12 titans. Neja of the Chinese is a boy who is the son of a prince, he's the son of a king, so he's a prince, and he again, blah, 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 blah. He gets all this power. He dies. Everybody castigates him and basically as a demon, right? Like, the whole world is like, screw you, we hate you, just like Jesus. And they castigate him as a demon. And he goes down into the underworld. He goes down into the depths of the waters and he fights the serpent, Ao Kuang. And he kills the serpent, Ao Bing, which is his son, and then Ao Kuang kills him, but then he revives himself. It's like this story is very, very rooted cross-culturally. Christian is another example. So what is this really getting at? There is a substance, and I don't mean like a physical. Yes, it's physical, but it's a divine spiritual essence which connects all things. That is what Christ represents. That is the truth of Christ. Christ is an interweaving, interconnecting. That's why he's the most popular man in the entire world for the last 2,000 years of human history. And this is what I think a lot of people knew, but this information has been lost upon us. It's not just the oil. It's not just the, I have to retain my sexuality, blah, blah, blah. I have to do this, I have to do the yoga, I have to fast, I have to do this. I mean, most of you guys, especially the women, you're doing it on the wrong timing frame, signature. Every culture has said during ovulation is when a woman's at her peak spirituality. That is, and then of course menstruation is the counterpart, where it's not like she's out of her spirituality, but it's a lot harder for her and she has to suffer, and that's where you become human, whereas ovulation is where you become godly because you can create life. Okay, so this is like, every woman who's watching my videos, you have to understand it's not when the moon goes into your sun sign. It's when the moon returns to the phase of which you were born. Generally, however, because you guys are so much more sensitive, God was like, well, I have to put a physical time signature on this. Like, the men are very consistent, and we've noticed this. We did a case study with over 50 people over a 3-year period. Nobody else in the world has done this. Maybe Joe Dispenza, but I don't think he's gone through this the way that I have. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that basically for Joe, it ends with aliens. He believes in channeling aliens. I don't know if that's 100% true because I didn't go to his seminars, but I know people who have, and they told me that he just believes in aliens and this is all channeling aliens. you could call it aliens, you could call it entities. It's egregores, it's energy, it's energy manifestations. What is any of these things? Let's talk about the concept of conception or temptation or victory or betrayal. These are energetic concepts that get physically proposed in our physical reality, right? So anyway, long story short, what I'm getting at here is Jesus is not just this. In terms of us as human beings, Jesus is not just a fluid. It's not just an oil. It's not just this secreted thing. Okay? What they're trying to do is they're trying to mask this truth. The inner Christ and the Christ consciousness is about how you can emulate all of the energy so that you can live in tandem with God. Okay? And the way that you do that is by harmonizing all of these things so that mother, father, and son can all come together and be a harmonious family. If you have a bad gut microbiota, if you have bad heart health, if you've got negative thoughts in your mind, you're living outside of the alignment of all of these things. And trust me, I've been there on all of these. I've been there on every single one of these. I've experienced heartbreak. I've experienced depression. I've experienced anxiety. That's what all of this stuff is. And it's about our response to the emotions of this, which creates the psychological conception, like literal conception, so that we can continue to be the best versions of ourselves. Because the reality is that we all started as children, and that the initiation stages are root psychological basis. Go to origin. I always teach people this. Go to the foundation of what origin represents. And what origin represents is we were in a womb for 9 months connected to our mother. And then we got torn out. Okay? We got cut. Some of us got snipped in places that we don't like to get snipped. And they brutalized us. That's what it's like. Imagine you're a baby. This is why we don't remember any of this stuff, because it's probably terrifying. This is why God built this into little baby brains, because it's probably terrifying. How come most animals come out of the womb and they're ready to go? They're just like, okay, I'm walking. No, like we come out, we're useless for like 2 years, 3 years, and then our use basically becomes, I can pick things up and I can put them in my mouth and try to kill myself, because babies just basically try to kill themselves all the time. It's kind of silly. So the point is with this, we have to look at the foundation of psychology here. All right, your body is constantly in this harmonious flow. It's constantly refurbishing itself, and you have an inner child which is connected down here. That's the frequency of like where your spirit is. All right, and your soul is this energy which is moving between these two. They're not the same thing. Spirit and soul are different. So, at least in my model, they are. So the brain and the heart are constantly having this conversation, which creates the soul. It creates the energy flux. But your spirit, who you are at the existential quintessence of all things, it's resulted here. This is where all the feeling happens. And the stomach would essentially be the stomach, or one of those counterparts would probably be the earth. It would probably be the hearth, where the energy falls, the manna from heaven falls down. We go, that was really yummy, and then it refurbishes our entire body with the nutrients and everything else. And yes, fasting is good, but fasting is only like, the lower world needs our attention. We need to start, working harder. Mom and dad need to work harder because the baby's not getting enough, And this is also where we're all birthed. We're all birthed in this part. We're not, when you have sex, you don't conceive a child in your brain. I mean, you do thought-wise, and then it creates physical reality right here, which is, again, at the dead center of the human body, which would be in the inner thalamus. All of us are an external reflection of an internal process that happens within all of us. It's psychology at the root of it on how we've projected this into reality. So, the last thing I'll say here too, 1 through 13, with 13 being Ophiuchus, the ascension, if you want to think of it that way. We could probably twist this around however we wanted to. But you could say 1 through 12 is Aries to Pisces. The divine signal, that spark, the conception, the bull comes in and finally creates something into reality. The birth, it's the Gemini aspect of innovation and new ideas and something new, and the twins coming into reality, because it's all about duality. The descent, Cancer, it's the moon. The temptation is Leo because it's the sun. And again, this is like a product of inversion. Virgo is victory. The Last Supper, Libra. Betrayal, Scorpio. 9, arrest would be Sagittarius. Crucifixion would be Capricorn. The burial would be Aquarius. And the resurrection would be Pisces. And then the ascension would essentially be Ophiuchus. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're a Leo, you're just like, oh, temptation. No, that's not what it means. Leo is like the life of the party. The sun is what like we all get out to go do, right? Like the temptation is really life in and of itself. That's why Satan comes to Jesus when he's in the wilderness and is like, I'll give you anything you want, man. What do you want? I'll give you anything you want. And so it's like the temptation of life itself, which is the sun. You go out and you feel the sunlight, you're like, oh, it feels so good to be alive. But at the end of the day, life is suffering. Life is suffering unless you walk that middle path. So I think it's really interesting to see the conflation and also the fact that like the geopolitics of the world right now, they're basically trying to bastardize this. I don't know where this whole aliens narrative is going to go. I don't know where the Antichrist, the Dajjal is going to go, however you want to say it. All I know is this, guys. At the end of the day, if you want to get closer with Christ, you have to get closer to yourself. Jesus talks about this. He says, you will do greater things than me. That's a quote from Jesus Christ. So if you don't believe that, that's your problem. That's not his problem, okay? He already did his work. Now it's time for you to do your work. Life is about suffering. Life is about hardship. Life is about doing the right thing because it's the harder thing to do. Okay, it's not about drinking. It's not about being namby-pamby. Oh, let's work a day job and go on vacation. No, work your day job, go on vacation, go enjoy your time with your family. But you need to have a concrete faith. You need to have resolution. You need to be creating good things. You need to volunteer. You need to give to charity. You need to help the world. Okay, and I think that there's a conflict, honestly, between the younger and older generations, where a lot of the younger people want to follow something like this, and the older generations are jaded, and that's turning a lot of the younger generations to be jaded. And the world is going to change whether we want it to or not. We are in an extremely potent, extremely magical time. We're not going to be able to just ignore this, but we need to come together. It's not about segregation. So I'm sorry if I sound a little diasporatic, but it's not about segregation, okay? It's about harmony. We need to harmonize. And I think that, when I see things like what's happened in the recent news, there was a man who was assassinated last month. It was very sad, Charlie Kirk. Whether you liked him or you thought he was a radical, whatever. I'm 31 years old. He's 31 years old. He died. What that taught me, I didn't even look at the politics. What that showed me was our generation wants to be destroyed by older generations because they're afraid. They're afraid of this. They're afraid of whatever this is. And what's sad is that if people just followed this model rather than listening to all the other garbage, who cares what shape the earth is? Sorry, guys, that doesn't prove anything. Who cares about aliens? That doesn't do anything for you. This is the root of where the future of spirituality has to go. Has to go. And if it doesn't go in this direction, we're doomed. Because they can now fake anything. So you have a responsibility now watching this video. You have a responsibility. You have to like it. You have to share it. You have to get this wisdom out there. And if you don't, then shame on you, honestly, because I've put in years of my life, years of effort, and just being completely open and vulnerable with you guys. There's not much more I can do in terms of pushing this out. I've tried. I make videos every day. I make videos on my social media every day. Sometimes I try to make funny ones. Sometimes I try to make cool ones, whatever. I'll dance a little bit. I'll do anything. I've been completely shadow banned, okay? And the support is running dry. And all of you are great, and I love every single one of you, but the support is running dry. I need people in my school. I need people in buying my books, sharing this information. This isn't about oh, wow, posted a really cool video. I'm not begging for money. It's not about money. It's about support. Money can be support, but it's about support, and we need to get this information out there. And if everybody just wants to watch what's cool and what's highly edited, I don't have the time for that. I'm actually working on the real stuff. I don't have the time for this. You guys want to offer your support and free services to make videos for me for free? Fine. I do need your assistance, though. I need your help. This is me reaching out, showing my vulnerability, and if you don't want to help, that's fine. But the more that you don't get involved, the more you don't comment, the more you just watch the video and you say, that was a fun video, that was cool, I learned a lot, thanks for the free video. The more you do that, the more we're getting further away from this. You have a responsibility in this. You have to. You're responsible for everybody that came before you and everybody that comes after you too. You're not just responsible for today, you're responsible for all of it. That's what Christ is. Christ is the interwoven frequency and fabric of all the roots of everything interconnected all together. That's what he is. He is the child of God. He is the one that God looked towards and said, I love this. Because at the end of the day, people ask, like, why did God crucify his only son? Why do you crucify yourself every day? Okay, why is it that the way that God had to create all of reality is he was one being and he had to split himself apart? Can you imagine how painful that was? Of course you can. You did that. When your father's sperm hit your mother's egg, you ripped yourself apart. And that was the first thing God did. And Jesus' death and resurrection is a symbolic process of the first thing that God ever did. He tore himself apart. God is everything. It's all energy. It's monadic. So it's all things. It's the root source of all things. And he killed himself in order to save himself. And you must do that too. So don't be lazy. You have a responsibility. Share this. Get it out there. Thank you. I love you guys, really. It means a lot to me to see the support. Every single comment, you guys light up my world. You light up my day. But if I don't get the support I need to propose and push this out, I've emailed my dissertation to people. I've shared it. I don't know what else I can do, guys. I don't know what else I can do. And if you want to be a part of this, then great, reach out to me. I love you guys. I really hope to see you guys in the next video. Guys, I've built an AI tool from scratch. I've got books, I've got courses, I've got an online school. Please find a way to support me, guys. I can't keep doing this forever. Very soon, this is going to have to turn into, you're not going to see videos from me as much anymore because I'm going to have to go back to the working world, which I'm okay with. But if we want to propose this and we want to push this, I can't be stuck at 200 views. I can't. We're going to sacrifice everything when the answers, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying this is a lot better than what anybody else is going to propose to you. This information, which I have worked tirelessly for 7 years, the last 7 years since I started this business, and even further beyond that when I was doing the research. I've worked tirelessly for this, and I've done it for you. So please do something in return for me so we can get this out there. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm not begging. I just really need the help. So I love you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.